I think the roots of a lot of the problems we have in our society are directly linked to racism, especially in its institutionalized form. If you look at indigenous communities, for example, the experience with residential boarding schools has been the means by which tribal languages have been attacked and in some cases completely destroyed. And educational institutions, the first ones that Native people were exposed to, kept cemeteries for the kids who went there. The results of that horrific experience, not just in assimilation, have also brought about a series of developments that include everything from an educational achievement gap, a widespread distrust of people in positions of governmental authority and educational authority, and the roots of a lot of the substance abuse and other problems we have in Indian country can be directly attributed to institutionalized racism. You know, I think many people of color, and Native Americans in particular, have suffered through a lot of historical trauma. It's kind of like someone was hitting them in the back of the head with a hammer, and it's not sufficient to put that hammer down and say, forget about it, it all happened in the past, because there's still this horrible wound that is causing so much pain. And to really heal that wound, to really reconcile the differences, it's important to embark upon a path of truth and reconciliation. And one of the problems with the modern face of racism is that every time there's a Native person being used as a mascot for a sports team, or a new English-only initiative, or a new it's okay to racially profile law, it just picks at that terrible wound on the top of the head, and it makes people recoil from the reconciliation effort. So the many faces of modern-day racism are not just the individual hurts in and of themselves, it stops and sets back the clock on that reconciliation and healing. This is a great state to live in. We have plenty of problems, but we have a lot of great citizens working really hard to make this a better place. And I think joining those efforts, being part of the solution, is really, really important. I think sometimes if you're not part of the solution, you might be part of the problem. Teachers, for example, who are too afraid to address race or too afraid to teach about cultures that are not of their own, may be perpetuating a system that teaches people only about one race. And we need to prepare all of our citizens for the world that's actually going to be here. After 2040, it's projected that Minnesota will have a white minority population. We should all be ready for that, prepared to operate in that, get along in that, and if we work together, we can certainly accomplish this. I think conversation is really critical. All too often when uncomfortable issues of race come up, people start talking at each other or walk away and don't talk at all. And I think it's really critical that we create safe space where everyone doesn't have to walk around on eggshells, and we can really arrive at a deep understanding of one another. Conversation's the first and easiest, most significant way to make those connections. I know for Native Americans in particular, they're often imagined and all too infrequently well understood. So conversation is the beginning of the healing. You know, I encourage people to reach out and to open their hearts and minds first and foremost. It's an attitudinal awareness and openness to conversation. And then seek out opportunities, and they're not that hard to find. So everything from attending a cultural event that's open to the public, like a powwow, to visiting with people, to checking out many of the resources that are available. And there's lots of stuff out there online for free, in great books, in meetings, in conversations. And once the subject is open, I think it's just a pebble in the pond and the ripples keep on coming. So once it's really the first step is just opening that conversation, and I think it'll get easier and easier to get more and better information and keep moving the agenda forward. I know in my home community of Bemidji, Minnesota, there's been a completely grassroots initiative that has brought bilingual Ojibwe language and English language signage to the majority of businesses in the town and open safe space to engage the subject of race, and really done a lot to advance understandings of one another without costing anybody a penny and without making anybody unduly uncomfortable. And I think that's just one of many shining examples of how we can all do better to address the issues. You know, something like the civil rights movement really got effective when it was 250,000 people marching on Washington, D.C., and a significant percentage of those people were white. So it's when we reach out, when we work together, that we can really move the issues forward.